acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and their elders past and present who may be with us this night. I'm going to hand over to Hilary Regan, who's the CEO of the Australian Theological Forum. It doesn't exist anymore. The ATF Press, I was there at the beginning. Hilary is, can we turn that down a little bit? It's just a bit of an echo. Bit better? That's better. Hilary moves, is there any part of Australia you haven't been on book launches and other things, Hilary? No. But you have been here a number of times, and we're delighted to be able to welcome Hilary to give carriage to this book launch tonight and speak to us for a little while. So Hilary, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. And I'd like to reiterate what he said in terms of thanking you all for coming. ATF Press has great pleasure in putting this event together in association with the ACCC. Over the last 3 weeks, we've had, I've been in Sydney 3 times, Melbourne twice, the USA, Brisbane, Toowoomba, in the next 2 weeks on the move again, so it might be a bit fuzzy. ATF Press has 4 imprints: ATF Theology, ATF Press, ATF Asia, and soon ATF France, which will be in French, with a number of people who worked for LACEF, the French Dominican Publishing House. We do about 30 books a year, have 5 journals, and we've been publishing 23 years. This book tonight is being published under the imprint of ATF Press and not ATF Theology for a number of sensitivities. Bill Morris, unfortunately, has been ill and only today came out of hospital and sends his greetings and apologies. To put a little twist on it, the book is called Benedict, Me, the Cardinals 3. At one stage I thought we could have called this evening Benedict, Me, the Cardinals 3 and 3 bishops. However, it's 2 bishops because Bill can't be here. And this is one of 6 launches that are occurring around the country at the moment. And because of Bill's illness, we decided we should still go ahead with it. We had one launch, the launch in Toowoomba was to be the first, and that's now rescheduled for Bastille Day. And we went ahead with the one in Brisbane, and he then went into hospital the next day, unfortunately, and has had pneumonia and has only just come out. But we're hoping he will be okay for the launch next week in Melbourne, and then we will have a launch in Toowoomba. And then the places where he hadn't been able to be for the launches in both Sydney and Adelaide and here, we would hope to have a speaking tour probably in August or September. So back to Stephen, who, as he said, was part of the ATF in the beginning. It did stand for various things in the various 23 years. Now it is just ATF Limited and ATF Press for the publishing. So thank you.
Thanks, Hilary. It's my very great pleasure to introduce Bishop Pat Power, who will be launching this book tonight. Bishop Pat hardly needs any introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. And I thought on this occasion, every now and again it's good to rehearse something a little bit more lengthy. Bishop Pat is a local lad, many of you will know, through and through. Born in Cooma, grew up in Queanbeyan, educated at St Christopher's School and St Edmund's College in Canberra, completed his schooling at Chevalier College at Bowral, and after leaving school, he trained for the priesthood at St Columbus College, Springwood, and St Patrick's College, Manly. Bishop Pat was ordained to the priesthood in Queanbeyan in 1965, served in the parish of Braidwood, then completed doctoral studies in canon law in Rome, and on the completion of his studies in 1975, he returned to Canberra, serving in various roles until in 1986 he was ordained bishop by Archbishop Francis Carroll in St Christopher's Cathedral in Canberra, becoming the 5th auxiliary bishop of Canberra. Since that time he served on bishops' committees for laity, ecumenism, canon law, family and life, social welfare and media. He's been secretary of the Committee for Justice, Development, Ecology and Peace, and a member of the Australian Social Justice Council. Much of his ministry has been in the field of ecumenical and interfaith relations. He was the first Catholic co-chairman of OSTAG, the National Anglican Roman Catholic Dialogue. He served a number of terms as chair of the ACT Churches Council. At the 1998 Oceania Synod of Bishops in Rome, Bishop Pat spoke on marginalised people in society and in the church. And much of his efforts have been directed in this area through Catholic welfare and through local community organisations in Canberra. He's been a strong advocate for the East Timorese and the Palestinian people, for Aboriginal people, for racial respect, for the unemployed, and in opposition to abortion and assisted suicide. In 2000, he chaired a major inquiry into poverty in the Australian Capital Territory. He supported the move to have South Sydney Rabbitohs restored to the National Rugby League competition. That's his great claim to fame. It's amazing what you find out on Wikipedia, isn't it? Is that true, Pat? It's true. You never know. Bishop Pat has said that the Church has retreated from the promising outcomes of the Second Vatican Council. In a 2010 article, he said that the issues such as priestly celibacy, church teaching on sexuality, and the role of women in the church must be discussed with Catholic lay people. He often expressed support for the ordination of married men. He retired as Auxiliary Bishop of Canberra and Goulburn in 2012. You all know he's a bishop who is never far from where the itch is in society, and he's never far from controversy, but following in the footsteps of Christ. Most recently, Bishop Pat spoke at the Palm Sunday Asylum Seeker rally in Canberra, which some of you may have been at. And we are delighted, Pat, to welcome you to launch this book tonight.
Thank you, Stephen, and like all of you, I feel that the occasion's quite diminished by not having Bishop Bill with us tonight, but I know that all of us are very much united with him in spirit. He rang me yesterday, still sounding terrible actually, but he said, give my love to everyone that comes tomorrow night. When I realised he wasn't coming, there was a nice photo of us both taken a couple of years ago, and I went over to Big W and got some printers, so they're on the table down there with the books, so feel free to take one of those. On an occasion like this, you don't sort of give apologies. I had bought 6 books from Hillary before we began because there were people that couldn't come and asked me to get a copy for them. But one apology I do want to give is from Paul Collins. Paul himself just out of hospital and can't be here tonight. Marilyn's here though. And Paul, of course, was a great support to Bill during all of the troubles, and certainly a great advocate for him. I did a book launch about 12 months ago at Parliament House, and it was the biography of the Croatian Cardinal Stepinac, who died in 1960. And that's really a story of someone that was hounded and persecuted by those outside the fold of the church. The book we're launching tonight is Bishop Bill Morris's book, which really is the account of the way in which he was vilified and subject to harsh judgment, but within the fold of the church. And so often the comment I've heard in recent months has been people saying, this would never have happened under Pope Francis. And I want to just read you something from the Apostolic Exhortation of Pope Francis to really bear out that particular comment. Let us go forth, the Pope says, to offer everyone the life of Jesus Christ. Here I repeat for the entire Church what I have often said to the priests and laity of Buenos Aires. I prefer a church which is bruised, hurting and dirty because it has been out on the streets, rather than a church which is unhealthy from being confined and from clinging to its own security. I do not want a church concerned with being at the the centre, and then ends up by being caught up in a web of obsessions and procedures. If something should rightly disturb us and trouble our consciences, it is the fact that so many of our brothers and sisters are living without the strength, light and consolation born of friendship with Jesus Christ, without a community of faith to support them, without meaning and a goal in life. More than by fear of going astray, my hope is that we will be moved by the fear of remaining shut up within structures which give us a false sense of security, within rules which make us harsh judges, within habits which make us feel safe, while at the door people are starving and Jesus does not tire of saying to us, "Give us something to eat." And isn't that precisely the type of leadership that Bishop Bill Morris was providing for the Diocese of Toowoomba? I'd recommend that, if you haven't, to read that apostolic exhortation and to read it all, because what the Pope is doing there is really reclaiming the teaching and the spirit of the Second Vatican Council. Because sadly, in the time leading up to his election and decades leading up to his election, we saw during the pontificates of Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict an increasing eroding of what Vatican II was all about. And I'm not just blaming the popes for that. I think there are many people that never had accepted Vatican II that were very much behind all of that. People pushing a conservative and a reactionary barrow. And some of the things that they were objecting to, liturgical reform, collegiality at all levels, the vocation of the laity, primacy of conscience, ecumenical and interfaith relations, engagement with the secular society, dialogue and co-responsibility, the role of women within the life of the Church. And if we go back to what inspired Pope John the 23rd to call the Second Vatican Council, he talked about opening the windows to let the breath of fresh air, the breath of the Spirit to blow into the life of the Church. Bill Morris was ordained to the priesthood in 1969, so really he spent all of his seminary time from the time of the opening of the Second Vatican Council, and he was very much a product of Vatican II. He had the good fortune too to be secretary to Archbishop Francis Rush, the Archbishop of Brisbane, who'd been one of the great fathers at the Second Vatican Council during the time that he'd been Bishop of Rockhampton. And like Bill himself, Frank Rush was an eminently pastoral bishop. It was in 1993 that Bill became Bishop of Toowoomba, and he was a really great pastor there. I had the privilege of giving the retreat to the Toowoomba priests in 2003, and to a man they said he's the best bishop that they'd had in memory. But sadly, there was a hard-line group in the diocese that really objected to what he was doing in those terms of promoting Vatican II. Be aware that politically and theologically, that was very much Pauline Hanson territory there. I've got to say that over the years, when I've made a few controversial statements, I think it's fair enough for people to criticise those if they're in disagreement with me. But I've got to say that the most obscene criticisms I got were from Queensland. I don't know why that is, but I think it was that same sort of group that were very much after Bill. Bill doesn't make any mention of it in his book, but I think too that a lot of those critics in his diocese, I think, were fueled by stuff that they were getting from south of the border here in Victoria, from